to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show, and it's time for our bold takes for Outlier #1 seasons at all 4 major positions. Matt English is in the house. How we doing today, Matt?
Doing all right, man. Like I always say, I'm back in the birdhouse. Life is pretty good at that point, and now that we're kind of getting down to the end of all of our dynasty drafts, rookie drafts, startup drafts, whatever it may be, now we're getting into shaping our roster, right? Getting into some trades and some moving around, spreading risk over our invested assets. This is fun time. And
Oh, yeah. And we've got plenty of rumors, plenty of action going on in training camp, and we are just 2 days away from real football. I don't know who's actually going to be playing in this Hall of Fame game, if we're going to see any first team guys out there on the field, but we might. You never know. I mean, there's some new guys on each roster. It's just exciting to see real NFL action. That's what I'm most excited about, and it's time with the training camp hype, especially that there's lots of tweets getting thrown around. I just got into an argument with somebody in one of my leagues over who's starting week 1 in Indy, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. I definitely did not have Anthony Richardson as my choice at quarterback for an Outlier #1 season, but neither did you. So anyway, though, let's get into it. So our parameters that we set for this, we did not try to take anybody that was projected as a top 5 running back in most projections, top 5 player at any position, sorry. Now, a couple of these guys are close to being top 5, and if you look at certain rankings, they may be top 5, but they're definitely not one of the top 2 or 3 guys at their positions. And so we've got some definite outliers here for you, some risks that you could take, maybe some guys you want to go ahead and make a move on right here. But anyway, we each got 2 guys that we went with at each position. And
Can I
so,
make a
yes,
request?
Matt.
Can we lead off with the wide receiver? We do wide
Well,
receivers first.
Well, I went ahead and put the wide receivers on the thumbnail, so let's do it. Let's give the fans what they want. We know the wide receiver is the most fun position, so let's go ahead and do it. Matt, you can. I gotta change the name then. Who I got here, because I got the players ready to roll in the what I'm going to share the screen here. So, all right, Matt, I'll let you start it off. Go ahead with your first wide receiver.
Okay, so my first wide receiver is definitely one of those that's much closer to the top. But he is a guy that gets drafted in the 2nd round pretty religiously, sometimes early, but doesn't really get past, like I'd say, the 208, 209, at least by the end of the draft season he wasn't. This is a big body guy. He's fast. He's the #1 on his team. He's got some more competition this year. However, there's been a lot of improvement on the offensive line. He gave his quarterback more time to get him the ball. And it's Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins, I'm not just saying I think he's got a shot to be the wide receiver #1. I think he will be the wide receiver 1. I think the addition of Christian Kirk and the pair of rookies from Iowa State and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, I think are going to help attract more coverage so that he won't be looking at near as many doubles. And let's be honest, outside of Nico Collins, this pass catching room, Nico's the only one that has rapport with C.J. Stroud. He's the one C.J.'s comfortable with. So I think his target share is up there. I mean, look at it last year. He was on pace before the hamstring injury popped up. He was on pace for 1,700 yards, 100 plus targets on 100 plus receptions on 150 plus targets, something like 10 touchdowns. He would have been a top 3 receiver had the hamstring not come up. Now, I know that kind of comes along with his baggage, but that's kind of baked into his ADP and his asking price. But that said, outside of the top 5 guys, he is much more affordable, and he's a guy that I've been trying to get on as many rosters as possible at the right price. I could get him on a lot of rosters if I wanted to overpay, but I'm not willing to pay some price. Anyway, your thoughts on Nico?
Yeah, I love the Nico call here. I've got him on one of my major keeper leagues, and him getting hurt last year crushed me in that league, just because, yeah, he was smashing last year, and your point there with him being the only main guy in the room, I guess, other than Dalton Schultz, that has rapport with CJ Stroud. Christian Kirk coming over from Jacksonville, Jaden Higgins coming in, as well as Jalen Noel coming in. I mean, they're all great, talented guys. They all have their special fits to this wide receiver room, but Nico was the number one. He's going to stay the number one, and I don't see any reason why his target share goes down at all, even with these new assets coming over to the Texans. And so, last year Stroud was one of the guys that got pumped up a lot because of his youth and his solid finish to the 23 season, carrying the Texans into the playoffs. And so now this year presents an opportunity for him to have some post-hype boom, right? Last year was the year he was supposed to boom, but everybody pumped him up too high. And now everybody's kind of letting him slide down the boards. And a lot of times you see it where those guys who were supposed to do great, and in one year, the following year is the year that actually happens. And last year there was a lot of injuries with the wide receivers. So there's sort of an excuse there for Stroud not hitting the ceiling that everybody was hoping for. And CJ Stroud was definitely somebody I was fading with that huge, getting pumped up to QB3 was just nuts without having any real rushing upside. You're looking at him having to put up Joe Burrow type numbers, and it just wasn't happening last year with all those injuries to the wide receivers, right, Matt?
Yeah, no, that's true. And not to mention, they've got a brand new offensive coordinator now in Houston. And last year with Bobby Slowick calling the plays, with the offensive line just falling apart in front of everyone's eyes, his play calling wasn't changing a whole lot to help CJ with quick slants, quick outs, a lot of quick hit plays that don't take time for route development. And he just kept calling long development routes, and it killed him. It absolutely killed him, which is why he's not calling the plays for Houston anymore. That was as big a problem as the injuries were last year. Play calling was a big part of it as well. But this year, they seem to have cleaned all that up, added to the offensive line, brought in more pass catchers. So I'm looking for a big season out of Nico, and we'll talk about CJ here in a little while as well. A little foreshadowing there.
Yeah. All right, so we got a question here from the chat, and this is Anthony asking, what would be a fair draft pick to include in trading away A-Rich for T-Law in a Superflex format? Now, considering he actually just offered this with Matt.
26th third, huh? Maybe a 26th fourth if you really want to shortchange him.
So I'll go ahead and take this one, since this deal is actually
a little biased.
A deal that Matt and Anthony are trying to work out in one of our leagues.
Anthony is trying to work out with Matt, not Matt is trying to work out.
Okay. So Anthony is trying to work out with Matt here. So Anthony's looking to acquire Anthony Richardson from Matt. And so that aside, and aside from that, Trevor Lawrence was somebody that you had in this initially, but you changed it at the last minute for another quarterback. But that still means that you're high on Trevor Lawrence. I am too, and much of the community is, of course, with the addition of Travis Hunter. There's good reason, along with Liam Cohen coming in to town. And A-Rich's value obviously is plummeted from last year at this time. So
on the 1-2 turn, and now,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's one of the last quarterbacks that could potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I got him about a month and a half ago in a startup in round 9, I think it was, which now seems maybe even early. But point being, I mean, I could simply say A-Rich and a first for T-Law, I think is pretty fair. That, to me, that seems, with all the risk baked into Anthony Richardson and sort of the stability that Trevor Lawrence has now with the young Brian Hunter, or the Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter. I combined them both, Brian Hunter, Travis Thomas. I don't know. We're gonna be screaming their names a lot this year, I think. And so anyway, I love T-Law going into this year. Yeah, for me, if I had T-Law to go down to Anthony Richard, I would want at least a first, I'd say. But it's the other way around, where he's looking to get Anthony Richardson, giving up Trevor Lawrence. I'd say a first rounder.
Maybe cook other pieces into the deal to make it seem, or make it worth more of a while. There's got to be other pieces that we can move.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to throw back a third, I could see that working in. Because, well, let's be real here. Anthony Richardson, literally, his ceiling is still QB1.
Yeah.
Like, if he puts it all together, his ceiling is higher than Trevor Lawrence. Right?
Yeah.
But the floor is obviously way higher for Trevor Lawrence. He's got the contract there in Jacksonville. He's just he's much more of an accurate passer. He's been to the playoffs. Like, he's just more stable. He's not going anywhere for the next few years. A-Rich might not start a game this year. Now, I likely think he will. Although me personally, I feel Daniel Jones will be the starter the majority of the games. And if Shane Steichen wants to keep his job, that's probably what the route is that he's going to have to do. But then you've got the GM and the owners, and they play a little part into it as well. And they're going to push for Anthony Richardson because they, took him as a top 5 pick. So we'll see. It's very interesting. I think it's 50-50 there in Indy. But anyway, yeah, just in general, when you're just talking QB for QB and the risk baked into A-Rich, I'd say a first is a fair toss in to that pick.
AR owners, best case scenario, Daniel Jones is the week 1 starter, and let the Colts stink for like 3 to 4 weeks, and then A-Rich comes in and lights the world on fire. That is the dream scenario. Because then he's
right.
got security. Then he's got security because he saved them.
Right. If it goes the other way around, where A-Rich starts first 2.5 weeks and just looks like garbage and isn't completing any third downs, isn't moving the team, they're having trouble getting points on the board, then Daniel Jones comes in the second half of week 3 and leads them back to a victory, then who's the savior, right? So it's almost like counterintuitive here that you actually don't want to be the starter week 1, ironically.
unless he comes out week 1 and just lights the world on fire, and then everyone's like, see, we just needed to give him more time. That's all. That's it.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly. All right. So that's enough. We all know that the ceiling is there for A-Rich, but the price is much cheaper than last year now. All right, let's get into your second dude here, Matt.
Yeah, so Davante Adams is a little bit further back in drafts. I know you can grab him in most super flex formats, 6th, 7th round, something like that. If you're lucky, you can grab him in the 8th. You got to be real lucky and draft him with some bozos. But that being said, Davante Adams has been, he's been a top receiver since, I don't know, when was he wide receiver 1? Like 2018, something like that?
I just did the numbers because I was going back to, it was 2020 actually. I've got the sheet right here. He was wide receiver 1 in 2020. Okay. 2020.
So for the last 4 years, even with shoddy quarterback play, right? Because he going to the Raiders, he had Derek Carr. Gardner Minshew. Who else was over there? What's that kid?
Aiden O'Connell.
But he had shoddy quarterback play. Then he goes to the Jets, where he's getting a much lesser version of the once great quarterback he played with. And he's always like in the top 5 of targets. He's always a top finisher in like receptions. And here's the really big one, and I'm going to get into this a little bit, his red zone targets. He has always been a high red zone target receiver his whole career. And again, I'll mention the bad quarterback play. He was still like top 5 in red zone targets every year. Okay? Even as he's gotten older. That being said, now he's going into an offense that not only does he get Matt Stafford, who can still spin the pigskin pretty darn good, he's in a better offense that's the plays are called by Sean McVay, and that's a better organization. He's going to get more opportunities inside the 20s to again be a top red zone candidate. So I think his touchdown upside is just astronomical. And yeah, I know Puka's there. I don't think he's going to take anything away from Puka, but when you start looking at vacated targets, again, LA is like top 3 in receiver vacated targets in just over 200 targets. So there are plenty of targets there for him to eat. There are plenty of red zone targets there for him to eat as well. And with all of those things kind of in alignment, that's why I think it's a long shot, right? He's 32 years old, and he does have another wide receiver 1 right there on his offense. But Matt Stafford's a great quarterback. He can support 2 top receivers, and they did it with Kupp and Puka, so it's not unheard of. And it's Sean McVay's offense, my goodness. We're going to have so many more red zone opportunities, and with Davante Adams now on roster, just watch some tape on Sean McVay talking about Davante Adams now being on the roster and what that does for the team. Dude is gushing for it. That dude's going to get some looks, and you're going to be happy you have him on your roster. I'll put it this way. I turned down, for Davante Adams, I got offered like Marvin Mims and 26 mid-first. I turned it down to keep my 32-year-old receiver. So that was an easy choice for me. Very easy. I'm going to win it this year. I'm going to win the league that I'm talking about. So.
You better, because that's quite the haul. Now, I don't love Marvin Mims too much, but I mean, if it was best ball, then he's somewhat decent.
Throw someone let's see, like with similar value. There's someone like, well, see, I think I'm higher on Shaheed, so that's not really fair. I don't know, but it doesn't even matter. Even if I knew
Romeo Dobbs.
Who?
Romeo Dobbs.
No, even if I knew it would be earlier first, I'd still pass on it because that's how high I am on Davante Adams and how much I think he's going to help the teams that I rostered him on to win a chip, right? So, yeah, I'm extremely high on Adams.
Yeah, no, I love Adams too, going over to the Rams. He's finally in a good offense. You know, the Raiders and the Jets offenses just weren't as productive as the Rams are. And, you know, even with Puka there, Stafford hyper targets his wide receiver ones and twos, typically in that McVay offense. Now, you know, this is obviously a much outlier pick than Nico Collins finishing wide receiver one, but that's kind of the idea here. It would probably take a Puka injury for this to actually become fulfilled. But you know, Puka's been banged up the last year, and if he gets a high ankle sprain and he's out for 4 to 5 weeks, you could see Adams dominate for those weeks. And you know, it's a great point with his red zone targets. If he gets 10 to 15 touchdowns, like, you don't know how the rest of the league's going to do. I mean, Chase and Jefferson could get hurt. He's gonna see close to 100 catches, that's for sure. So yeah, it's not too crazy to see it happen. Now I'm going to get into, I'll give you my selections here. Now the first one, I think the first one we both, yeah, the first one we both really agreed on is something that could definitely happen, and that's Drake London. So Drake London, he did finish wide receiver 5 last year. Now I don't think average per game he was wide receiver 5, but he played every week, so that's how he was able to get into the top 5. He was still probably top 10 in average per week. But the key here for London is the offense, which is the old Rams offense. Zach Robinson running the show there in Atlanta. You've got a strong offense, right, with Bijan, and now the key is Michael Penix coming into the fold. He wasn't targeted as much with Kirk Cousins. Cousins targeted him plenty, but Michael Penix targeted him almost 40%. I believe it was a 39% target share in the 3 games that London was, or that Penix started. And so that's just crazy. I don't expect that high, but even if it's just low 30s of a target share, and even if Kyle Pitts actually, you know, becomes kind of something, London is still the guy. He's still getting close to 150 targets this year. The key for London to make it happen really is the touchdowns. And can he steal a couple from Bijan, right? If they get, and it's first and goal from the 2, are they gonna throw a couple up to London in the corner fade for him, and, you know, try and trick the defense instead of, you know, if they're stacking the box on Bijan, is London going to steal a few? Because to be wide receiver 1, let's be real here, you got to get to like 14, 15 touchdowns at least, right? So that's what's going to have to happen. You know, and even if Penix were to get hurt, Kirk Cousins could come in, and London still could make it happen, because Cousins, I mean, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere, and he's probably the best backup in the league. So they don't really lose a whole lot. But yeah, this Penix London connection is really the key to make something like this happen. And I mean, the dynasty market is pretty similar to Nico Collins on Drake London. I mean, most startups that have done, he's gone right near the back half of round 2, usually right after Nico Collins. And so I think the community is pretty high on London. Everybody sees it. Be interesting once I start doing some of these redrafts I've got coming up, just to see quite how high he actually goes. I guess the other guys around him would be like Lad McConkey. Brian Thomas is probably going to go ahead of him. Nico Collins, like we mentioned. So he's in that range, and it's definitely well within the range of it happening. Any thoughts on London there, Matt?
Oh yeah, I think it's very important to note that like we're both very extremely high on Drake London. Um, so if you're trying to target somebody based off of the guys that we list out here, where we overlap might be a good place to start. But no, yeah, I'm extremely high on Drake London. He doesn't need that high target share to be a wide receiver one, like you mentioned. It's stupid over those final 3 games at 39%. But I think in like a high 20s, low 30s, the difference for him is the air yards and the average depth of target, because he runs. Penix loves throwing that deep ball, man. He's got a pretty deep ball too. So, and London hits a lot of those fly routes or skinny posts or streams. So he's going to see a lot of those deep targets, which are just big bust plays that really explode in your lineup. So if you're checking your scores and all of a sudden your score just jumps big time, it's probably because Drake London just caught a ball, because it's so deep. So there's plenty of opportunity there, but I think you're absolutely right. Getting on the touchdowns is going to be a big deal, because I think the yards are just going to be there. But for him to get anywhere to like, let's say 12, I would say if he gets to 13 touchdowns, he's probably going to be there in the top 5 anyway. He'll be top 3.
Yeah.
If he gets to like 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, to be wide receiver one, though, the way the wide receivers have been putting up numbers, at least the healthy ones that play every week, you're talking 1,800 yards is what you almost have to get to. So it's going to be tough for him considering the top 3 wide receivers, but it's definitely possible. It's definitely well within the range, especially if he stays healthy again this coming season.
If he pushes over 15 to like 16, 17, maybe 18 touchdowns, then we're a real conversation of wide receiver one, because let's face it, man, Cincinnati's defense is terrible. Jamar Chase can get a lot of targets, dude. He's getting a lot of targets.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so then my more of an outlier pick here, I went the veteran route as well, and I'm going back to the well here in Tyreek Hill. Now this one, I've been higher on Devontae Adams myself in startups and in being active in trading. I've even tried trading away Tyreek in one of the leagues I have him. But that's just more, it really comes down to the health of Tua, right? And if Tua can stay healthy, if they can get their running game going, it comes down to the offensive line gelling to get that running game going. But the key is the way defenses were playing the Dolphins last year. They were playing that too high defense and just not allowing the deep ball. And that was really hurting Tyreek last season. As you can see here, wide receiver 21, probably his worst finish since his rookie season. And so at age 31, the juice is still there, okay? He can still fly, and he's one of the top 5 fastest players in the league still. And so as long as Tua actually can stay upright, I don't really trust Zach Wilson coming in to make him wide receiver 1. But, we've seen it a couple of times. I don't know if Tyreek actually finished wide receiver 1 ever by the numbers that or the league scoring at least that I went by. I went back all the way to 2019, which was Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas was 29. There's a name, right? But Tyreek definitely had plenty of top 3 seasons. We'll put it that way. Going back to his Kansas City days, and then even with the Dolphins, the first year with the Dolphins. And so, it's a shot in the dark. I don't know that it can happen, but I know that Vegas is still in on him. They have him as the 5th best odds to lead the league in receiving yards. So they still see that ceiling, right? And so yeah, that's the way you got to look at it when we're trying to make bold takes and see ceilings of players, not just the floors, right? And so Tyreek is in a position now where he's much more affordable than he has been in the past. And so if you're willing to take a shot in redraft, I think you might be able to get him in the third, fourth round. He might fall to, because a lot of the community, just in general, redraft or dynasty, they're both down on him,
Yeah.
to be honest. And so he could slide in some of the redrafts. What do you think, Matt?
And he's made no secrets about it that he's unhappy in Miami and the way that things have been going. But and we'll talk about this, I guess, with another player as well. But if Tua is healthy, Miami's a different football team. A healthy Tua supports a lot of big-time fantasy producers, including himself. So Tua needs to stay on the field.
Yeah. Now we've got another question here. This one from Tommy. Now, this relates right to the wide receivers. Do you think Puka or Neighbors has more potential to finish as wide receiver 1 overall in full PPR? Asking because I'm drafting at pick 7. So he's already got his, this is a redraft, probably 1 quarterback league. He's asking, he's got pick 7, which is right in the range to take, Puka or Malik Neighbors. Both guys that we considered but felt that they were a little too high, so they fell outside of our parameters here, because I think both of them have a legitimate shot at wide receiver 1 this year. For me personally, I'm going to go Neighbors. But what are your thoughts there on Puka or Neighbors? Who has more potential? You're picking at 7. Who would you take, Neighbors or Puka?
So for me, I think that's pretty simple. I mean, I think when you look at it, you kind of kick back and analyze it. It's an overanalyzation. I think it's an eye test type of question. And for me, it's Neighbors. Very easy decision. There's no other receiver to deal with competition-wise. There's both potential concerns at the quarterback position from an age standpoint. And injuries that they carry along with them. I know Matt Stafford's already dealing with some back soreness. But it's all target share. Malik Neighbors is going to have stupid target share the whole time. And we saw what he did last year with garbage quarterback play. So I've got Malik Neighbors, I think, ranked number 3. And Puka I've got back there at like 7 or something. So I think Neighbors, it's an easier call for me as well to just say Neighbors.
Yeah, I'm going Neighbors just because of the volume that I know will be there, versus Puka. Again, you've got Devontae Adams there to steal a ton of targets away from. I know Stafford's going to throw a lot to the top 2 receivers, probably more so than the Rams are going to have more pass attempts than the Giants. I'll say that, right? Yeah. But yeah, Neighbors' competition is Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt. I mean, come on. And we saw in his rookie season, Neighbors be targeted more than, I believe, any wide receiver ever. So, for their rookie season. And yeah, so it really just comes down to a health question. They both got banged up a little bit last year. Neighbors with the concussion. Puka had, I believe it was an ankle. He had a couple of issues last year. But yeah, I personally, I would slightly lean Neighbors. They're both great options for you at the number 7 pick there, Tommy. You can't really go wrong with either of them. But I guess I would personally lean Neighbors slightly. If you want this, put it this way, Neighbors is the more risky pick, but Puka's the safer pick, but at the same time, Neighbors' ceiling is slightly higher, I think, I guess.
Right. So I would say this, if you take Neighbors, you probably want to get some other receivers that are a little bit higher floor guys, right? Just to kind of offset some of the risk there. Like you want to go like a Lad McConkey, a JSN, guys that you know are going to get good target share, that are going to put up a certain amount of points every week, no matter what. Right. But if you go Puka, then maybe you're taking some shots on guys later in the draft,
like Jameson Williams,
right?
Those types.
Shaheed, guys that can really pop off. Crazy weeks for you. So.
Right. It's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we're gonna go. You want to go over to the quarterback position, Matt?
Yeah. Let's talk about the guys throwing them the ball.
All right. So we'll start off with your boy. And this ties right into the Nico Collins pick.
You already got him up there. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah. So C.J. Stroud, man, he was going as like a top 5 quarterback in Superflex startups last year, like number 3 or 4 overall.
That's right.
And a lot of people got burned last year, anticipating a big sophomore boom right after the freshman year boom. And they didn't. They got a big negative ass regression across the board. Yards, he went from 4 interceptions to 12. Touchdowns were down. Everything was down, right?
Right.
He lost all his receivers at one point in the year. His offensive line was playing with practice team guys or practice squad guys. They were doing everything they could just to field an offensive line. And then they had a play caller who would not change the calls that he was making to help his quarterback. So he had a big time slump. Thus, we now have a wonderful window of discounted C.J. Stroud, in my opinion. So he's another guy I've targeted, not just in drafts, but also in the trade market as well, because if I have a top, I can always down tier to C.J. plus, and totally comfortable with that. Plus, I mentioned I like drafting Nico Collins. I like to stack Nico with C.J. And the way I draft and where he's falling, usually I don't have to take a quarterback in the first few rounds. I tend to go heavy receiver, and then I look at a quarterback maybe 4th, 5th round, something like that. And CJ's hanging out 4th, 5th round. I think I got him in the middle of the 5th round or something like that in our last startup, but most of the time I'm catching him there middle to late 4th. So,
yeah, I think the hype on the rushing quarterbacks has definitely helped suppress CJ's value, but certain people still see that ceiling that made them want to take him so high last year. And I think that Stroud has at least 1, maybe 2 outlier seasons in him where he could finish top 3, 4, 5 with a monster touchdown total season. We're talking without that rushing floor, he's got to get 40 plus touchdown passes. And now with the influx of those 2 rookies from Iowa State, Christian Kirk there, I think it's possible. We'll see if it's this year. That new offense would really have to click. It does help in a way because it'll be a new offense that teams don't have film on. And, this questionable injury to Joe Mixon, that could help play a part in it as well, right? I mean, it was a lot more stable when you're looking at the Texans with Joe Mixon number 1, Nick Chubb number 2, a little mix-in of Woody Marks. That looked like a lot more stable of a backfield to a situation where the Texans would be leading a lot in the 4th quarter of games and just handing it off. Now, if you don't have that stability and you're playing catch-up in the second half, well, that's how the quarterback gets more fantasy points, right?
Yeah, that was something else I did mention that I wanted to. Yeah, they've added a lot of playmaking weapons in the pass catching area for CJ. They improved the offensive line, hopefully to give him some cleaner jerseys, new play caller. But they drafted Woody Marks, man. And Joe Mixon's getting older. He's getting to that age where you start to be like, we moving on here. But then they go in and bring in Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, who destroyed his knee a couple years back. But so I don't. And then Mixon's dealing with a foot issue right now. But there's not a ton of investment in the running aspect of the running back room right now, but they did add Woody Marks, who adds a lot of electricity into the pass catching upside of the backfield. So I think this is going to be a lot more pass-centric of a team instead of being so balanced. So I think you're just going to see more passing. So I think it is plausible for CJ to eclipse 35 to 40 touchdowns. I think it's totally doable. Because again, as we mentioned, they've added catching weapons as well. And he's got two alpha-type builds now to start with, in Higgins and Collins. Yeah, I like the outlook. Again, it's a roll of the dice, and whereas he's a little bit closer to the top as is compared to my other selection, and he's got an uphill battle ahead of him, but I think it's totally possible, especially if Nico's having the season that I project him to have as well.
All right, so we'll get into that second option you picked, who's a little bit further down the board depending on the rankings you look at, and we'll stay in Texas for this one. And it is Dak Prescott. All right. So what makes you think Dak could pull it off at QB1?
Well, there's one caveat to Dak doing this. Stay on the field. That's it. Stay on the field.
Of course.
Okay. Look, Dallas in this draft went out and got themselves an offensive lineman in the first round. Okay, went and drafted Jaden Blue, who's known primarily for pass catching out of the backfield. Okay, and he does bring that element immediately because the dude's got some moves. He's shifty, he's fast, he's got good hands. Right? Go and add George Pickens after the draft to pair up with CD Lamb. All signs point to Dak's going to throw the football a lot this year. A lot. Because again, no investment really into the running back room outside of adding a pass catcher through the draft. Just like the Texans, same idea, right? Now, Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders might be slightly younger than the backfield that Houston has with Chubb and Mixon. But again, Javonte Williams has not been known for his efficiency. Miles Sanders, neither. The investment seems to be on the young pass-catching back. That's who we spent our money on this year in day 3, and that's what we're adding to our quarterback. And so with that, you also remember just historically, Dak. In the last 6 years, 4 of them, he's finished top 10. So it's totally plausible if he stays healthy with the added weapons and where the focus of the offense seems to be, totally plausible he goes QB1 if he stays healthy.
Yeah, of course, that's the caveat for sure is the health. But Dak's somebody who definitely has been pretty much underrated his whole career, right? I mean, he went
he's also got Joe Milton breathing down his neck too, so he knows he's got to
yeah. Right, it's fair. I mean, they did spend, what did they give him, a 4th rounder for Milton? But yeah, Dak, like, he went in the 4th round as a rookie, and then perennially over the last 6-7 years, he's always going, he's being picked, in the teens, but finishing top 10, top 5 a couple of times, right? And now you add George Pickens to the mix, and that just gives him the explosive type weapon that he needs to be able to throw for 40 touchdowns. I think we can all say that CeeDee Lamb, we know, will be a top 5 wide receiver if he stays healthy. But Pickens just really opens this offense up. You pointed out the running game very well. I don't think anybody in that backfield does anything more than what Rico Dowdle was able to pull off last season. And I don't know which one of those 3 running backs is going to be that guy. I think that one of them can do it. It's just really hard to say which one because they all have their warts. But that said, that just bodes more so to the fact that Dak is going to have to throw it 600 plus times this year. And I don't know, their defense is so inconsistent. They're going to have a couple of games, sure, where they might blow out somebody, but, last year they had a couple of really ugly losses. right? To the Eagles, and I'm trying to think, or was it just to the Eagles twice? The Lions was the other one where they really got smoked. And if they can just keep those games a little closer so they don't bench Dak in the fourth quarter, I think they'll have more of those games like the 49ers last season where Dak brought him back. And if he's slinging it 20 plus times in the second half, yeah, he can definitely get to close to 5,000 yards. And I mean, personally, I almost think that Dak is a better bet than C.J. Stroud is to have this happen.
Yeah.
Just because with the running game you mentioned, like Houston has Nick Chubb. Well, Nick Chubb is a lot. I don't care. His knee must be back, right? He was squatting 600 pounds. I mean, he seems to be fine. Nick Chubb is a way better running back than anything Dallas has right now. And I also think Houston's defense is more consistent. So those two things combined with the history of Dak finishing top 10 so many times, finishing top 5 a few times, I think that Dak is a real good bet to actually make it happen. All right. Now I'm going to throw you mine. And I don't think it's any surprise for any of you here listening to the Birdhouse over the last couple of years. And my first option here is Baker Mayfield. Baker finished in this format that I brought up, QB4 last season. What is there to not say? Like, this guy is another guy who's been underrated, basically because of his age, at least in the dynasty startups that I've done this year. He's consistently going in round 4, right? One of them, they faded quarterback heavily, and somehow I landed him in round 6, which was ridiculous. But point being, Baker's got all his weapons back, plus Emeka Egbuka, and they start the season healthy. Bucky Irving's there to solidify the running game, keep the defenses honest. The only main question mark is, how does the play calling change, if any, from Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville and Josh Grizzard, the passing game coordinator, taking over in Tampa? And honestly, I'm not really that concerned. Grizzard was the guy who called the plays on third down, the passing plays. So he was familiar with doing it already. Chris Godwin, yes, there's a little question mark there as to how healthy his ankle still is. There's Tristan Wirf's injury. But that's all part of it. He's not expected to be quarterback 1, right? We're picking outliers here. So I think that Baker's got a shot. A lot of people are surprised, actually, when you look at last year's stats and see where he actually did finish. But the Bucs have a somewhat inconsistent defense. They're in a division where they're expected to win the division, so they should have plenty of high-scoring games in that division, because the defenses are not that great. When you're talking New Orleans, Atlanta, and Carolina, none of those defenses scare anyone. I know Atlanta's added a couple of pieces there, but they still don't really scare anybody yet. And so those are 6 games right there where both teams could be scoring 20-plus points. And there's one thing about the Bucs that I love is we did not take our foot off the pedal when we were hammering teams last year. We kept for more points, and so that's where I think Baker could make it happen. What do you think, Matt?
Oh, I totally agree with you on that. They also didn't take their foot off the gas when they were drafting this year by drafting Egbuka in the first round. Right? No one really saw that coming, but we're already seeing,
I sure didn't.
We're already seeing the value of making that call because Godwin's not 100% right now. And I felt like, and I think we even mentioned this early on in the rookie draft season, that it was, the evaluation on Ibuka was incredibly lazy, right? Because like,
Yeah.
well, Godwin and Evans are there. He's more for next year. He's an investment pick. He's a really good player. He can play every spot on the receiver game board at a good level. He's super smart, so he's picking up playbook fast. The dude's going to get work this year, and I'm high on him. I only have like a 10% share on him in Dynasty this year. So, I think Baker's got all the weapons at his disposal. Yes, there's someone different calling the plays. But I like Baker. I like Baker a lot. I like his attitude and how he plays with that chip on his shoulder. He's not scared of anybody or anything. And I think that serves him very well. So yeah, I could totally see that happening if, as long as the receivers stay pretty healthy, he should be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, he even figured it out last year when Evans and Godwin were out. He was able to still sling it around and make Sterling Shepard and whoever, K-Dot, and stepped up. Right.
For several weeks.
Right. And so, the Ibuka pick, Ibuka's not going to be Randy Moss, but remember what happened in Minnesota when they had those 3 wide receivers. Like, that was impossible to guard. And so, you got a Hall of Famer in Evans, somebody in Godwin who could be a near Hall of Famer if he would have been more healthy. Like, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this season. We'll say that. All right. So the other guy that I selected at quarterback, speaking of Minnesota, we're going to J.J. McCarthy, and many people have hyped him up already this offseason. He's been kind of polarizing. Some people are down on it because he's a rookie, or maybe because he didn't throw enough at Michigan. Those are all things that I don't buy into, because Michigan, they didn't have to throw the ball, nor did they have the weapons really to put up massive numbers. I mean, Colson Loveland was there, but Roman Wilson wasn't exactly a volume, big body receiver to give you huge touchdown totals. And from what I've seen in camp so far, McCarthy has all the tools there to just put up a monster season here. When you're talking, he's got one of the best, if not the best, receiver in the league in Jefferson. Addison, even if he is suspended for, let's say, 3 games, the other receivers there, Jalen Naylor, the rookie Tay Felton, they've got bodies there to make up for Jordan Addison missing a couple of weeks. And then you've got TJ Hawkinson. Yes, and then you've got Hawkinson there, who Hawkinson is even somebody who could flirt with a tight end one season. So, yeah, and then the running game isn't that great, right? And you have an inconsistent defense. Those things bode well for a QB1 type season. Like, McCarthy might have to sling it a lot in the second half. They're in a division that there's going to be shootouts. So McCarthy's going to be throwing it a lot more than he did at Michigan. I'll just say that. And I hit for his price. I like it in Dynasty. I think I'm gonna love where his price is at in redraft. So I'm buying into McCarthy. We'll say that. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, again, this is another guy that I'll point out that we both have on a list. Someone I've targeted a lot in startup drafts, again, based on his price tag and what I see getting for that price tag. He's got veteran pass catchers in T.J. Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson, 2 of the best at their position. He's got Jordan Addison, who's been great his first 2 years as a guy who can haul in the touchdown catches. Thought he'd have a big regression last year. He didn't. He put up what, 9 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns again, something like that. But again, and here's the big one though: having Aaron Jones in that backfield for JJ is going to be a big deal. Having that trustworthy guy that you can just dump the ball to, that's out of the backfield, is going to be huge for him. That's just going to be massive. It's also going to be a lot of cheap ways for him to score points in fantasy. He's also got sneaky upside in rushing. He's an athlete. The boy can move and run. So I think we're going to get to see a little bit of that this year. Nothing crazy, but for him to add a couple hundred yards on the ground, maybe a few rushing scores, that's going to help your case to finish as a dark horse QB1. Plus, he's incredibly accurate. You don't even have to get me started on that. Go watch all of his camp tape, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about with the accuracy and the placement of the football. Really, really good.
Yeah, in order to get a QB1 type season, you do need to get a few cheap rushing touchdowns, and McCarthy definitely can pull that off. I can see 5, 6, 7 rushing touchdowns happening there for him. So we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back with our running backs and tight ends for you.